This is one that people have been talking about like a rivalry game really since last season ended. Like Florida State and LSU, there's no like classic rivalry built in there necessarily. There's not like a traditional, LSU Bama feel or Florida State Florida feel. But even so, the way that these fan bases have interacted on Twitter is nothing short of just textbook college football fanhood. And I love it so much. Both great fan bases. This is going to be an absolute movie. Sunday, 7:30 Eastern on ABC. LSU, man, they lost this one last year. Felt like it should have gone to overtime. It didn't. Woulda, shoulda, coulda. They feel like they are a world's better team than what showed up last year in New Orleans because it was Jaden Daniels' first game at LSU. It was Brian Kelly's first game at LSU. They were trying to put some things together and almost got it done. And so ever since that game ended, they're like, all right, come on, run that back. Heck, we didn't even know who Harold Perkins really was nationally this time last year. So they're ready for this one. They're excited to get back what they feel like is theirs. Now for Florida State, a lot of pieces that won that game last year, they're back. They are number one in returning production in the entire country. Jordan Travis proved to everybody what he was last season. Mike Norvell, we weren't even sure if he would be there through Halloween last year, and he got himself an extension. For Florida State, man, the talk all offseason has been they could be a playoff team. Hey, they could win the ACC. Hey, they could be a team that really makes a move there and they take down Clemson. Like, this could be the year for Florida State. If they are going to be that team, I think it starts this week against LSU. That would be a statement game that everything that's been talked about with Florida State, all the labels you've put on them, they beat LSU in week one. I think they validate a lot of that talk. So the psyche here for both teams is fascinating. For LSU, it's a lot of, well, they made it to Atlanta last year. Is that where they're just going to go forward now from? Like, is that the baseline for Brian Kelly, just showing up in Atlanta, beating Alabama? Like, is that who they are? Curious to see how they handle that. Even more curious to see how Florida State handles this kind of talk because there hadn't been this kind of buzz in the Mike Norvell era. So now how do you handle everybody going from, is Mike Norvell going to be there, to eventually now it's, hey, are they going to be a college football playoff team? That's a very different dynamic to deal with. But if Florida State is able to utilize the leadership they have in-house. They got a lot of leaders now. Talent is back, yes, but leadership is back as well. If they can utilize that hype and turn it into motivation, good things are going to happen in Tallahassee. Really quickly, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're locked in. We appreciate it in advance for that. Let's talk some ball now. All right, big question in this game. Might be the big question in this game. What is the efficacy of Florida State's pass game against LSU's transfer cornerbacks? You got Zy Alexander transferring from the FCS level, playing corner for LSU. You got Deuce Chestnut transferring from Syracuse, going to also play corner for LSU in this game. Now, Florida State, they went and got themselves some transfer players as well on the outside. They went and got Keon Coleman. He's going to be an absolute dude for them. Wide receiver transfer from Michigan State. Probably the best player on Michigan State's roster. Now in Tallahassee, they've loved what he's done all offseason long. They feel great about him during fall camp. Felt like he's hit the ground running. Jaheim Bell, a tight end for Florida State who transferred from South Carolina. Mismatch nightmare, right? Really good movement ability. He's tough to line up with one-on-one. Oh, by the way, they feel good about the way that he's progressed as well, playing the true tight end position. He played a running back a lot last year for South Carolina, if that tells you how much ability the kid has. So the reason why it's a big question for me, with all the new pieces LSU's breaking in that secondary, is it going to be a situation where this is like the trump card for Florida State? Is it going to be a situation where, hey, man, we played great in all other areas of the game if we're LSU? Offense did a great job keeping up as best they could. But in reality, that was the one matchup that just took us to school. That was the one matchup we could not win, was Keon Coleman going up top, was Johnny Wilson, all 11'5" of him, going up top, taking it off the top shelf where the kids couldn't get it? Or is it a situation where LSU makes enough timely plays? And the reason why I say timely plays, I don't think this is a situation where you just take away the pass game for Florida State. Like, they have too much talent, and I think Jordan Travis is too good of a quarterback for it to be a non-factor. I don't think you stop them, but I do think it could be a situation where it's a tied football game, it's 3rd and goal, and you find a way to get a pass break up and hold them to 3 instead of getting 7. That could be a difference maker for LSU. So I don't think you limit the Monstars, but I do think you could maybe make enough timely plays to be able to win that one. So that's going to be crucial. If Florida State can just have that be the matchup that they milk all day long, could be a long night in Orlando. Now, the other part of this, LSU being dynamic in the run game. That could change things for how this game works out, because last year for LSU, let me read you a stat from this game. Against Florida State, LSU had 139 rush yards. 114 of those came from quarterback Jaden Daniels. So what's wrong with that picture? I said that the run game needs to be dynamic, meaning they got to be able to work that zone read game. You don't really want to block Jared Verse, to be honest with you. They feel better about the offensive line at LSU. That's 100% true. But you would much rather just read him and have him be wrong. Jared Verse is going to crash? Okay, that's fine. Jaden Daniels, he'll pull it. You want to just sit there? That's fine. Give it to Josh Williams. Let him run. If they can be multiple, be dynamic in that run game, that messes with the defensive line, kind of mellows them out a little bit. And they have a good defensive line at Florida State. Even more importantly now, messes with the safeties. If those safeties have to trigger because Jaden Daniels is tucking it and getting 8 yards, or Josh Williams is getting 5-6 yards a pop, that would be, one, a little bit surprising if they're able to have that much success on the ground. But even a version of that, if those safeties have to start running up a little bit more quickly, then we get to have a couple shots if we're LSU. Then we get to find out, okay, can we go get the deep ball on them? Can we get the explosive play? Because all offseason long, we sat down across from Jaden Daniels, and we're like, hey, man, a lot of people talking about the offense need to be more explosive, need to be more vertical, and we're kind of just trying to have a conversation with him, and he did not back down from that at all. He's like, yeah, we got to take shots when they're there. We got one-on-one. I got to go give my guys a chance to go make plays. Like, bottom line, 100% true. So he understands what it is. Like, Jaden Daniels knows, hey, if I'm going to get this team past Atlanta, or back to Atlanta even, is probably a fair way to say it, he needs to be able to push the ball downfield. So what that does to the box is interesting. I say the box in terms of like that area between the defensive line and the linebackers, really that part of the defense that's responsible for stopping the run. If they're able to get some shots deep, well, then that box is going to be a little bit lighter. Then those safeties, they can't just trigger up and stop the run. So that's going to be huge. It's going to be very huge. One way this could happen too, wouldn't surprise me at all if Mike Denbrock and Brian Kelly say, you know what, we're tired of hearing all this talk about what our offense can't do. Let's just dial it up from the first series. Let's just take a deep shot to Kyron Lacey, let him go get it. Malik Neighbors, let him go get it, whoever it ends up being. I'm curious if they do that, because then that would ultimately just kind of jump straight to that point where the box is lighter for Florida State and LSU gets to run the football. Now, to that exact same token, though, if I'm Florida State, man, like we were talking about, I'm coming out swinging. Like, I am not waiting for this game to come to us and for us to settle in. Like, I am testing LSU from the jump. Both those corners, I'm going to find out real quickly what they are. Hey, you haven't played in the southeastern region of the FBS? Haven't played ACC football? Haven't played in the SEC football just yet? Well, let's find out. Let's find out about y'all. See what you got. Because we feel good about Keon Coleman. We feel good about Johnny Wilson. And we saw them be really aggressive last year with Florida State. We saw them run that trick play, deep shot to Pokey Wilson, touchdown, strike up the band. Like, life was good early for Florida State. And then LSU kind of found a way to climb back into it. If Florida State throws some punches early and they get up on top on LSU and they find a way to get up 14-0 in the first half, I don't think this is the same Florida State team you saw last year that let LSU figure it out and get back in the game. I don't think this is a team at Florida State that would make that mistake twice. And so I'm just saying, I don't think it's a game that is over early by any stretch of the imagination. But this is going to be a tough Florida State offense to be able to keep pace with should they put pressure on you. And that's the world that LSU does not want to get into. They do not want to have to go score for score with this Florida State offense. Too much experience, too much firepower. If you give them a head start in this track meet and you're LSU, you're not winning this football game. Now, a big part of LSU being able to limit that, and a big part of Florida State being able to take advantage of this LSU defense, and take advantage, maybe even the wrong word, to attack this LSU defense, is what you do with Harold Perkins. Because a big talking point for people in Baton Rouge, when you talked about this game a season ago, it was, yeah, but Harold Perkins wasn't even playing in that game, really. No, that's great. Not taking anything away from y'all. We'll see y'all week 1, but Harold Perkins wasn't even in this game last year. He's in this game this year, and he is going to be responsible for helping stop the run, running sideline to sideline. But I think a big responsibility for him will be spying Jordan Travis. Jordan Travis now, I think he's still running around back there from that game against Oklahoma. He's making plays with his feet left and right. making plays against Florida left and right. That can't be the way that LSU lives. And if Florida State is able to essentially break the game plan for LSU and Harold Perkins gets caught up in other responsibilities, playing pass coverage or bites on a fake, whatever, like Jordan Travis will make them pay. So keep an eye on that matchup. Harold Perkins playing linebacker for LSU and spying Jordan Travis and what happens with his legs, especially when plays start to extend. That'll be crucial. All right, now. So for our pick in this one, man, we went back and forth on this one, not just all week long, all offseason long. And I want to go on the record here saying this. It would not surprise me if either team won this football game. Like, I don't think there's a clear read either way. I think the talent for Florida State is there for them to really deliver some knockout shots early. And I mean that sincerely. The wide receivers, Florida State, if they're just unstoppable, if that is just the edge for them, game, set, match. Because then they can just pour it on, and score probably 40-ish. And as good as that front seven is for LSU, if you can't win on the outside and you're getting taken advantage of there, it's going to be a long night. But the reason why I feel more confident about LSU going into this game, I think the offensive line from last year in this game to this year in this game is just night and day. Like last year, it was throughout the course of the season really for LSU. Hey, pick a name out of a hat. That's the team. That's the rotation we're going with this game. And you were not solidified by any stretch of the imagination on the offensive line. This year you are. This year you got Will Campbell not being a freshman, actually getting the number 7 patch. Side note, I think we need to get him the number 7, period. If a quarterback can wear 33, let him wear that single digit, big fella. But you feel better about the O-line. You feel better about protecting Jaden Daniels. And if you can protect Jaden Daniels, he's not going to have to just run for his life and ad-lib all night long like we saw him do last year. It'll be a tall task for the LSU offensive line, but I think they'll have a much better shot at limiting the sacks from last year. Because last year, Florida State sacked LSU 4 times in this game. Jared Verse had 2 of them. Jared Verse may still get his, but I don't think the disruption factor will be there as much as it was last year. So in this game, our pick, I think Harold Perkins being a factor in this game is a difference maker. Could very well go either way. I think it's back and forth all game. I think we got a classic on our way in Baton Rouge and Florida State in this one. I guess the game is in Orlando, excuse me. So to pick this one, we got LSU winning this game 31-29. Barn burner. Florida State could very well still run the table the rest of the way and make the college football playoff. But I think LSU had this one circled for a minute. And what they have this game compared to last game, just knowing who they are as a team, I think LSU finds a way to win this one in Orlando. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.